Good morning. As most of you know, I'm Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. I'm joined here today by Nancy Hoppuck, who is the Executive Deputy Attorney General for the Criminal Division of my office, and by my Senior Advisor, Greg Krakauer, who has been working on the initiative that we're announcing today. Here to announce a two-part initiative to crack down on fraud against the government and the taxpayers of the state of New York. Everyone knows we're facing a massive budget deficit. The governor and the legislature will be working on that in the weeks to come. But one thing is clear: we cannot afford to lose any more money to companies and individuals who seek to defraud the state, whether it's tax fraud, fraud on government contracts, or Medicaid fraud. The taxpayers of this state deserve nothing less than an aggressive approach to combat fraud that leaves no stone unturned and uses every weapon in our arsenal effectively. So today we're announcing a two-part initiative that will show anyone thinking of ripping off New York taxpayers that we're going to go after them with every tool we have, and that they will pay the price. Medicaid fraud has been a problem in our state and every other state in this country for a while, and it has been addressed through a series of Medicaid fraud programs in states around the country. This all started really when President Lincoln created the first False Claims Act to enlist citizens in blowing the whistle on corrupt contractors during the Civil War. The law has been updated at the federal level. In 1986 it was revised, and then again in 2009. New York State was a little behind the curve on this. We didn't pass our own False Claims Act until 2007, but it has proved to be an extremely powerful tool, and the former Attorney General had great success in bringing false claims actions and recovering from those who defrauded the Medicaid system and some other frauds. Critically, under the False Claims Act, criminal penalties are possible, but whether a criminal prosecution is brought or not, defendants have to pay triple damages and civil penalties, the highest civil penalties of any New York statute. So if you cheat the government, cheat a state or local government out of $1 million, we can come after you for a $3 million penalty plus additional civil fines. The law has resulted in the recovery of hundreds of millions of dollars in stolen funds for taxpayers, but virtually all of those have been recovered in the area of Medicaid. These have been stolen Medicaid funds, with relatively few cases being brought involving non-Medicaid fraud. One of the last things I did before leaving the Senate was to clean up the case law relating to the False Claims Act and to strengthen it. And we passed a new bill called the Fraud Enforcement and Recovery Act. This only went into effect in August, and it gives New York the most powerful False Claims Act in the United States. We are the only state that can bring false claims proceedings against those who commit tax fraud. We have resolved a lot of the issues of burden of proof that had prohibited or prevented the Attorney General's office from making recoveries in the past. And we are now going to announce today that we are setting up a taxpayer protection unit to commit the same level of intense focus to non-Medicaid fraud that the Medicaid Fraud Recovery Unit has demonstrated with great success in the area of Medicaid. We are targeting firms that rip off government pension funds, contractors that overbill taxpayers, and large-scale tax cheats. A new unit of prosecutors will conduct civil investigations and prosecutions against contractors and public officials who make or use any false or fraudulent claim, record, or statement to obtain government money. The unit is specifically going to leverage the new powers given under the improved False Claims Act. And in addition to the fact that we can now go after tax fraud and that we make it easier for local governments to pursue fraud, we now can prosecute corrupt subcontractors, which is a big problem under the existing law. So this is something that I've been speaking to the former Attorney General about since we passed the law in August, and we agree that this is an area in which we can and must save the state money. Without this statute, with a weaker false claims law, California, which set up a similar taxpayer protection unit some years ago, has been able to recover hundreds of millions of dollars in the last decade. We believe we can do more with less because our law is better, and we have confidence in the quality of our attorneys. This is a whistleblower statute. So we are encouraging people to come forward and, as has been done frequently in the case of Medicaid, blow the whistle on corrupt contractors, blow the whistle on companies that come to New York State and commit major tax fraud. Any false filing to the government subjects them to liability. We're confident that there are billions of dollars out there. New York State currently pays over $13 billion a year out in government contracts. Billions more in contracts are given out by local governments. And we're confident that we can do better than California and start recovering that money this year. In addition, we are going to be reaching out to local governments and having lawyers in our office train them. I was in Rochester and Buffalo earlier this week. The local governments there are very excited about the possibilities. And we also have reached out to the State Bar Association, where I appeared yesterday, to try and get private sector lawyers, and we have an agreement in principle to do this, to help leverage the resources of our office by gaining expertise in bringing these cases and helping to advise local governments. A lot of smaller jurisdictions simply lack the wherewithal to recover funds that are owing to them under the False Claims Act and to recover the treble damages, which during hard economic times they certainly need. And the second part of our initiative today is that we're going to be taking advantage of the new improved False Claims Act by also bolstering our Medicaid fraud recovery unit. This is a major revenue-generating agency that recovers taxpayer money through successful Medicaid fraud prosecutions. It has civil and criminal jurisdiction to investigate, and we have targeted in recent years large-scale frauds involving overbilling, kickbacks, substandard drugs and medical equipment, and Medicaid mills run by organized crime, and those investigations have led to criminal prosecutions. It also contains a patient protection unit that safeguards elderly New Yorkers from abuse and neglect. So the enhancements possible under the improved False Claims Act enable us to do more in the area of Medicaid fraud as well. Both of these initiatives will be funded by a small portion of the money that we'll recover in these frauds. In Medicaid, we additionally get a 3-to-1 match from the federal government. So for every state dollar we spend, the federal government gives us $3 towards building up the unit. And we expect to be able to expand the Medicaid fraud unit, build up the taxpayer recovery unit at not just at no cost to New York State taxpayers, but with programs that generate significant recoveries that more than pay for themselves. And quite frankly, we can't afford not to do this. We can't afford to leave money on the table. And one thing that we've learned through the Medicaid fraud experience is that once you get whistleblowers going, once people feel empowered and protected, and there are additional protections under the new enhanced bill that we passed last year, they come forward, and there's a lot that you can do about fraud recovery. So the bottom line is that we're trying to send a signal that anyone thinking of ripping off New York taxpayers will have to face an aggressive investigative unit. If you're thinking of ripping off a local government, we're going to empower local governments to recover against those who seek to defraud them, and we will go after people who seek to rip off our taxpayers with every tool in our arsenal. We have a good new tool. I've spoken with the current governor, former Attorney General, about this really since we enacted the new statute in August. He's strongly supportive, and we look forward to doing everything we can do in the Attorney General's office to help with the budget problems the state faces. So thank you for being here with us today, and now I think we